Hi guys, today I'm going to share a fly that I fished up in Canada several years ago and did really well with. I fished it down here and didn't really have much luck with it, but maybe I wasn't fishing it right or something, because when I went up to Canada and fished it, it just knocked them dead. And I caught lots of fish on it, and then surprisingly enough, when I came back here and tried fishing it the same way I did up there, I started catching fish. So this is the Prince Nymph. The ingredients for this fly that you're going to be using are, of course, our 6/0 black thread. We're going to be using tan goose biots. Now these are olive. You can also use olive, but just some sort of a neutral color right on the back. You can see the natural curvature of the feather. If I were to snip these feathers out, the one on this side would lay this way, and the other one on the other side would lay that way. That's how I've gotten this nice little curve there. I don't know if you can zoom in and see that curve right there, but each of those biots right there are curved outward, and that's how you do it. You find the natural curve of the feather and you tie it on that way to the way it splays out. The third thing rather that I tied in was my small oval silver tinsel, and that's what it looks like there. That's the size right there. Oval, strong, small. I use the smaller stuff because I don't like the medium or large stuff. It just gets too gaudy on the fly, and it actually ruins one of the things that we're going to lay down today, which I showed you in an earlier video, is how to make peacock herl chenille, and that's what this fly calls for, and that's what we're going to use. So that we're going to lay that stuff down on there. Now the next thing that we're going to lay after we do that is some ginger hackle, cinnamon, anything that is basically that color right there, kind of a cinnamon, ginger, brownish, reddish brown, anything like that on the front. It's not rocket science, but just try to make it the monotone color with no variation like you see down in here. Just the one color is what you're looking for. And also remember, when you're winding it on, the shiny side or the good side of the feather always points towards the front of the fly as you're winding this thing on. Okay, you would never want to lay it on this way, because what's happening? Well, the hackle's going out towards the front of the fly. We don't want that. We want the hackle to go towards the back of the fly, and this is how you achieve it, by laying the front side or the top side of the feather, the good side, towards the front of the hook. Okay, the final step in this, and this is the final ingredient, is a white goose biot, and these are actually going to serve as some wings here. And now you can see how the natural curve of the feather lays down. Both of these two feathers are going to lay in a V pattern right over the top of the fly, and they're going to lay on there just about like the scissors look right there, just kind of like that. So we're going to lay those on top of there as well. Now I'll explain to you where goose biots come from. This is not actually a goose biot. This is just a seagull feather that I picked up down in the marine yard in Tacoma here. And this is, you can see here, these biots here, they're stiff. They're very similar to this here. Well, that's because they're the same thing. On a regular feather, you have the big huge long side, and this is what we make our dry fly wings out of, is this stuff right here, this real webby stuff. So you snip out a piece about that big right there, and that'll make a nice little wing for your dry fly. On the wet fly, this is what we're using over here, is the goose biots, and you can see how they lay down real nice and stiff. They can take a beating, and they keep on going. So with that, I'm going to get to tying this fly. The first thing that I'm going to do, after I've already laid my goose biots in and I've laid my silver oval tinsel in, the very next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tie my peacock herl chenille. Now I'm not going to sit here and wind it up and do the dubbing loop for all that for you, so if you're interested in how to do that, it's on another video that I have. Just check out how to tie peacock herl chenille. Type that in there and you can go check that video out. So just to kind of save time for you guys, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just line these ends up here. I'm going to snip it, and I'm going to tie this thing up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've wrapped up the peacock herl chenille, and I've got it all tied off here. I went behind it and in front of it, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and snip that off. Now you'll notice that I hold the material straight up, and the thread is hanging straight down, because if I were to go like this, what do you think would happen? I'd cut my thread, obviously. That's why we always hold our material straight up and snip it off. That way we're never in the way of the thread. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my tinsel. Now guys, you noticed I did one thing. My tinsel has always been right here hanging. Even when I was starting to wrap my peacock chenille on here, this oval tinsel was already hanging back here. I don't know if you saw that in the first part of the video, but I already set that up. I had it ready, and a lot of guys will take and just snip off a piece and go, oh, that's what I'm going to use. Well, I try not to do that. I try to trap the silver oval tinsel in the little V thing they give you to keep it from coming unraveled. There's a little slot in your spool. You'll find it when you buy this stuff. There's a little slot right there, and I encourage you to use that, because that's how you hold the tinsel in one place without ever getting it to come unraveled or fall on the floor, and then you got to wind it all up. That just turns into a big mess, and it never winds back up. As you can see, it's happened to me once already. But anyway, it's nice to be able to utilize this vise that I have here with the knobs and stuff. You can just hang that over that. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take this out of the V now, because I'm ready to use it, and then I'll just sit here and I'll wrap this thing, counter wrap it. I would normally wrap stuff like this to the front of the hook. Now I'm going to counter wrap this oval gold tinsel here, because I want it to crisscross that peacock herl chenille. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, and I'll be right back. Okay, just finishing up the wrap here on the oval silver tinsel, tying this thing off here, get a bunch of wraps here over the top of it going backwards, and I'm going to take right down in the clutch of my scissors, right down in the clutch in the very bottom. So I've wrapped my oval tinsel on there, and you guys can make the wraps that you want. I like a nice little segmented body. I don't think there's a number count on how many turns you have to have. Some guys might follow that rule. I kind of don't. I like the ribbed look there, and I like that shiny little cross ribbing look there. So that's how I wrap my my oval tinsel up there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this this hackle here, the ginger hackle that we talked about, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the thin end first. Here's our hackle right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it by the tip here, and I'm going to just take and kind of caress those feathers back there, because I really want to get down into that nice fine stuff down there right away. So I'm going to go ahead and stroke that feather back just like that. And now the nice thing about doing this is you can get those hackles back just about in the same place, and you're left with a nice little tip that you can tie in. Now I'm not going to use that whole tip, because obviously you don't want to do that kind of stuff when you're tying it on the hook. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take and snip that back so that we have that fine little tip sticking out right there. Okay, then we're going to take this, we're going to tie it right down, downward and at a 45, like I've told you guys. That's how we do it. Tie that right on there like that. Now I'm going to take that back into that chenille there, so I really know that that hackle is getting down in there. And then I'm going to take this up to the front here. Be careful about wrapping too much thread on the front, because we still have to build our head. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wind this hackle around. I told you guys the good side to the front. So now I'm just going to grab my hackle pliers. I'm going to wind this around here. So there's my hackle all wound in, and you'll notice that I tied it in, and then to get it to lay back, what I did was I kind of tied back into the hackle. Now you don't want to really bear down with the thread on this when you're getting back in here. What you do is you take your two fingers and you grab all those feathers and you pull them back out of the way, and you kind of go back into them. So that's what I'm talking about when I mean I'm going back into the hackle. I'm kind of tying back into it to get it to lay down like that. Usually it just takes some loose wraps around there to kind of get it just to lay down a little bit there. So that's what I did there. Now the last and final step of this fly, which is, you can see it's a pretty easy fly to tie, is to get these goose biots to lay down up on top there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick two, and then I'm going to cut them off, and I'm going to lay them in a V right on top of the fly. You can see they're kind of curving in a downward fashion there. So they're going to lay right on top. And when I lay these on top, I don't just lay them on top. What I do is I actually slide them through that hackle right there, because it helps them lay down when you go to finally tie it down. So they kind of go in there like that. I just take some wraps over the top. Okay, what we're doing here is I'm just kind of moving these feathers into position here. Sometimes it can be a little pain in the butt to work with, but anyways, I think I've pretty much got it here now. So I'm going to go ahead and tie off the head. Now watch how I do these biots here. Watch how I finish them off. I'll take them and I'll flip them up like this and hold them back. I'll get on that front side of them and I'll actually go into them a little bit here. Snip them off really short like that. One there. One there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build up a little head here. I like those fat little black heads on these things because it actually fools the fish into thinking that there's something there. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this off here, guys, and if you haven't seen how to do that, go ahead and check that video out too, of how to go ahead and whip finish this fly off. But I'm going to go ahead and whip finish it off. But that's how you do it, guys. That's the Prince Nymph right there. A very good fly to use in lakes in about September. And you can use them at the onset of the season too. In April, May, and June they work well also. So it's a great nymph pattern. Imitates stoneflies, can imitate a number of things out there. So anyway, this is it, the Prince Nymph. Hope you guys like this fly, and I hope you decide to use it because it really, honestly, it does catch fish. I've seen it work hundreds of times. Thanks, guys.